and it wasn't your house that was being looted. That was somebody else's. So during the entire BLM riots, when everything was being burnt in the ground, well, those were just business owners who may have lived in the Portland area. So they can off because you're too busy virtue signaling and taking a stand.
Throughout the entire devastating fire news cycle out in California, in Los Angeles, many people have been turning to one man, one voice to really tell it like it is. A man who's been lifelong Angelino and has been screaming about the incompetence of the actual Democrats who are in power in that state, but also the mindset and political philosophy that motivates these incompetence. His name is Adam Carolla. We've been focusing on him quite a bit the last couple of days because his podcast has been just absolute must listens for the last several days, because he's living through it. He had to evacuate from his own home. He has friends who have left their homes, and he's been screaming about the incompetence of the Democrats and the socialist policies that empower them for decades now. This is Adam Carolla's moment, and yesterday, well, he continued with the great insights.
So the National Guard has pulled in. And the National Guard has pulled in because there have been lots of stories about lots of looting, because we live in Sodom and Gomorrah times here in Los Angeles. Like, we are so bad that after we mismanage the fires, then all the human beings that are criminals that are running around the streets, who are tired of doing street takeovers and tired of pulling copper wiring out of streetlights, now have mobilized, and they're tired of looting the CVS and the drugstores and the Gucci purse shop and everything else. They're bored. They've now taken to looting because people are being removed from their parking lots, or I should say being removed from their neighborhoods and transported places. And so the neighborhoods are empty, and now the looters have moved in. So we've called the National Guard. And the fine people of Santa Monica and Malibu and the Palisades are very happy that the National Guard is now here protecting their homes and their valuables and their property, and stopping arsonists who are copycat arsonists who are starting and trying to light more fires and being successful. So the people of Santa Monica, people of Palisades, people of Malibu are happy to see the National Guard. But when BLM was burning everything to the ground in Seattle and in Chicago and in Portland, you were against the National Guard being called in because it wasn't your that was on fire, and it wasn't your store that was being looted, and it wasn't your house that was being looted. That was somebody else's. So during the entire BLM riots, when everything was being burnt in the ground, well, those were just business owners who may have lived in the Portland area. So they can off because you're too busy virtue signaling and taking a stand. And God forbid Trump suggests that the National Guard be called into these cities. You were dead set against it, citizens of Santa Monica, because you're so much better than we are. But now that it's your that's getting looted, well, now you're happy to see the boys in uniforms that are cordoned off your neighborhood with your precious in it that you don't want to see stolen or burned to the ground. You didn't give a when this was going on in every blue city in the United States. You were all against it. Well, now it's your city and you love it.
That's right. It's a brilliant observation. I'm so used to playing these clips and then giving you my opinion but there's nothing more I can say. I mean, it's the brilliant, most perfect point, except I will say this as well. A couple of things. All those homes, I'm sure, that are being protected by the National Guard right now, where everybody's screaming, please protect my stuff from these looters. I bet you any money they all had BLM signs out in the front yard to virtue signal to everybody that they were on the side of the looters back during those things. And by the way, I distinctly remember members of the Black Lives Matter movement who were rationalizing the looting that was going on during those riots in 2020, sitting in a television studio or talking to a reporter on the street on camera saying, listen, this is reparations. All right. And those businesses, CVS and Walgreens and Macy's and all these other businesses, they have insurance. They're not actually losing anything. The insurance company will replace it. So what are they worried about? That's what they would say. You remember it. You saw it. And so it would be fair to say the same thing to all of those residents in Palisades. But sadly, we actually have a heart and actually have values. And of course, we step in and try to protect. It's also worth noting, in a moment, we got more about Adam Carolla, but I just want to remind everybody, when there was a devastating hurricane in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis faced a similar issue. You know, Florida and California comparisons are very important. You'll remember Gavin Newsom was putting up billboards in Florida criticizing Ron DeSantis. He was like running against Ron DeSantis. They debated each other, you'll remember, last year, because everybody thinks it's going to be these two running against each other in the next presidential election. Could be. Well, then it's fair to see how they both handled things during natural disasters, the hurricanes and the fires. And when Ron DeSantis had a problem with potential looters in Florida, this is how he handled it.
Tolerate any looting in the aftermath of a natural disaster. I mean, it's just ridiculous that you would try to do something like that on the heels of an almost Category 4 hurricane hitting this community. I'd also just remind potential looters that people, you never know what you're walking into. People have a right to defend their property. This part of Florida, you got a lot of advocates and some proponents of the Second Amendment. And I've seen signs in different people's yards in the past after these disasters. And I would say it's probably here. You loot, we shoot. You never know what's behind that door. If you go break into somebody's house and you're trying to loot, these are people that are going to be able to defend themselves and their families. So,
not something that Gavin Newsom would or could ever say in California because of the laws that he's enacted in that state. And I remember Ron DeSantis being criticized for saying that. But I'll tell you something. Where would you rather live? In a place right now after a devastating natural disaster where you now have to face looters coming in and stealing whatever's left after these fires? Or if you abandon your home and by some miracle your home did not get burned down, but instead somebody broke in and stole everything? Would you rather live in that atmosphere? Or would you rather live in a place where this guy gets up there and says, hey, you want to loot? You go ahead and try it, but we like our guns here. You loot, we shoot. Bye-bye. Yeah, I think there's not even a close call there on where you'd rather live, except for the mosquitoes in Florida. That is a problem. We'll figure it out. We're not the only ones who think Adam Carolla is a vital voice right now to be heard. Laura Ingraham at Fox News Channel invited him on the show yesterday. Take a look.
But Gavin Newsom wants us all to believe that he just wants factual information out there. So the rest of us should just sit back and, frankly, not say anything.
It's insane, the huevos on this guy. And then all the people on the left who, after lying to us about COVID and being wrong about everything COVID, from the origins of COVID to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and everything else, the fact that these people with a straight face now look into a camera lens and talk about mis and disinformation and how dangerous it could be is totally insane. And don't you find it insulting?
Yeah, it's beyond insulting. It is insane, and that's right. But that's the focus right now. The focus in California and Gavin Newsom is, oh, we've got to stop misinformation. We've got to stop misinformation, which is, by the way, if you remember right, exactly what the Democrats said during the pandemic, during the election, during any single time where they don't like the fact that we have a voice and we can express our opinions. We got to stop misinformation. And we see what that looks like in the long run. It ends up being censorship. And Adam Carolla remembers all too well what it was like. Earlier on his podcast, actually, before he saw Laura Ingraham, he expanded on this notion in, well, Adam Carolla's very colorful style on his uncensored podcast. And here he was.
I don't care, mom and pop business or biggest business in the world. Right. When the government comes at you and says, we're going to you up,
100% believe.
Then everyone goes, fine, what do you need from us?
Blame the government. Absolutely.
Yes, 100%. Yes. So I don't call the guy a hero, but I do blame our government. But now listen,
I do as well.
All you fucking pussies out there that have your panties in a bunch because these guys are going to be able to speak freely now, go yourself 1,000 times with 1,000 rusty mop handles, because you're now worried that misinformation and disinformation, after you've been creating all the mis and disinformation for the last 10 years, give me a break. You are pissed off because you can't control the narrative, not because the narrative is dangerous. It's only about control. You guys were wrong about everything. You had control and you forced everyone to capitulate.
And now
you don't have control and you hate it. But it's not because it's dangerous. Or if it is mis or disinformation, then what are we talking about? Ivermectin and horse paste? Like, what are we talking about here? It's insane that they even have the gall to feign that they're upset about this new thing and how dangerous it's going to be when people start making their own decisions.
That's right. Whenever people start screaming about misinformation and disinformation, what they really mean is things that they disagree with. And they are not angry that people are able to spread misinformation as they categorize it, because as we've known, one person's misinformation is another person's different opinion about something. Or for that matter, your own doctor's second opinion. Imagine that. Imagine going to your doctor and having your doctor give you a second opinion and say, you know what, I think you should try ivermectin, and it works for you. And then you go to the Facebook and you say, hey, all my Facebook friends, I was really suffering with COVID and I was scared because I had a pre-existing condition, but my doctor gave me a second opinion and he offered me ivermectin and it worked for me. You should try it too. And then that got censored and you got banned and your account got deleted. And you got removed from Facebook altogether because you expect. And it turns out that opinion is truthful and right. That was what was misinformation. They don't like that. They say they don't like it because it's misinformation. What they don't like is that you are able to speak your mind. They don't like that you are able to not only say whatever you want, but also hear other people expressing opinions that they don't agree with and that they don't approve of. That's their big problem. And that's why they'll continue to go back to it. All that you'd think that they would have learned after the Twitter files came out and everybody saw exactly what the government did to try to censor people's opinions on Twitter. And then on Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg comes out today and says, or this last week, and says, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. And we shouldn't have listened to the government and we're not going to do it anymore. No more of these fact checks, no more of this censorship, no more of this. And you'd think that they would say, oh, okay, we get it. That game's over now. Nope. They're right back at it because Gavin Newsom doesn't like the fact that you can see a picture of that empty reservoir. Gavin Newsom doesn't like the fact that people can go on social media and say, you know, he actually stopped all of these water projects. The people of California voted statewide in referendums to authorize the money for new water infrastructure systems, and Gavin Newsom never spent the money. Imagine that. Government money approved of by the voters that Gavin Newsom chose not to spend. But why? Because he was beholden to the environmental groups and he refused to spend the money to reinforce and build up the water infrastructure in that state. He did it deliberately and he hates the fact that you know that. And so they're trying to censor you. And it takes Adam Carolla to use rather vivid language to hammer that point home. Good job, Adam. Keep up the great work. Increased tariffs on our trade partners, tax cuts and regulation changes. Learn why right now gold is a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only company I endorse, is releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword written by Donald Trump Jr. I think he knows what he's talking about. To get your free copy along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, text my name, Larry, Larry, to the number 989898. The national debt continues to increase. Our interest payments on that national debt continue to increase. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar, and Birch Gold is still the company I recommend to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and that's without a penny out of your pocket. Text Larry, Larry, to 989898 for your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. No obligation, only information. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. You too can turn to Birch Gold. Text Larry to 989898. Do that today. Do it right now. Do it. Are you done? Did you do it? Did you do it?